but hiring the right people at the right time, like knowing when you're in enough pain to hire versus taking a chance and preemptively hiring, that balance is really, really hard. In this market in particular, where, almost all of us are aiming for or reaching profitability rather than relying on large amounts of venture capitalism. So there's been a big shift since 2021. That hiring piece is even more important because salaries are very, very expensive. In our part of the world, it's not easy to manage people if it isn't going well. So yeah, we have to be very, very conscious with people and make sure we make the right decisions at the right time. And I'll be the first to say I have made many, many mistakes on that.
Are you a scaling SaaS founder? Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those you don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where software quality isn't just about speed and features. It's about building secure, reliable products that don't panic when the audit hits. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. How early should you start thinking about security in your product development? If your answer is when we land our first enterprise customer or after launch, or even if it's after lunch, you're already behind. In this episode, we dive into why security isn't a feature, it's a foundation. If you're building software without having security as top of mind, you're not just creating risk, you're slowing future growth. Cybersecurity expert Laura Bell Main shares a compelling case for making security a core part of your team's culture. From reframing security as an integral part of software quality to shifting developer mindsets from someone else's job to everyone's responsibility. This episode explores how to create a dev environment where security is second nature, not a last minute fire drill. Anybody else had those? You'll learn practical strategies for increasing visibility, prioritizing vulnerabilities like technical debt, and driving behavioral change through safe to fail environments. Plus, we discussed how laying the right foundation early can accelerate enterprise deals, reduce sales friction, and even build customer trust before it's ever questioned. Whether you're running a lean startup or scaling into regulated markets, this episode shows you how to embed security in your DNA. So it's not just another checkbox, but a true competitive edge. Let's get into it. Our expert guest last Thursday was Chris Daly. He gave us a front row seat to what actually drives website conversions. And for a lot of us, it's not what we thought. As a neuromarketer and founder of Smart CRO, Chris revealed how psychology-based testing can improve profitability without just copying your competitor's homepage. From content hierarchy to the role of AI, it's a CRO masterclass that's refreshingly data-driven. And our founder last week was Danny Tomset, founder and CEO of Unique. Danny shared a behind the scenes story of building one of the world's most advanced digital human platforms. From early government contracts to nearly burning out his team, Danny opened up about what it really takes to pioneer a new tech category and how they found clarity by narrowing focus and humanizing AI. If you missed either one of those episodes, go back and give them a listen. My guest today is Laura Bell Main, CEO of SafeStack. Laura has been reshaping how the world thinks about software security. With 2 books, dozens of keynotes, and a global platform that trains dev teams to build securely, Laura makes one thing clear. Security is not a task, it's a culture. But what sets her apart? It's her belief that security isn't a task, it's a culture. Laura brings a practical, deeply human lens to one of the tech world's most misunderstood responsibilities. Welcome someone who's making security smarter, safer, and more inclusive, Laura Bell Main. Hey, Laura, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, you've been a global force in cybersecurity for a while now. I
Yeah.
mean, give us the quick backstory. How did your path in secure software begin, and what led to the founding of SafeStack?
I love that you were really polite about that and you didn't mention how many years because that just makes me feel old. Um, so I accidentally got into software when I was 16, which it was never the plan. I wanted to be, I'm from that generation who we watched shows like Ally McBeal and The X-Files. So I wanted to be a lawyer or like a pathologist or like solve alien murders or something. But things changed and I needed a job and I managed to get an apprenticeship as a software developer at 16. And so I started my career writing COBOL systems for the tax service in the UK. And I spent a long time as a production engineer, doing all sorts of things from real-time radiation monitoring software in Switzerland through to intelligence stuff in the UK. And what I found was I had a natural instinct or gift, if you like, or problematic streak, for finding bugs in software. And so I was working literally in a basement one day for my job, and I was a Java developer at that time, but I've since reformed. And so I was finding all these bugs, and my boss came to me and said, Laura, we like working with you, you're really nice, but can you stop finding the bugs in the software, please? I was like, well, no, because like bad software is bad software. And he said, okay, cool. Well, maybe you should go and meet the security team. They live just down here in the building. You should go and work with them. And so I became a crazy sort of hybrid. I did some years as a penetration tester breaking into things, and now I live between the people who build the amazing technologies and the people who break them and try and make the world a little bit safer.
That's really awesome. Well, what do you think really stood out to you about security? What drew you in there, and whether it's the breaking in part or breaking stuff or finding holes or making code better all around?
Yeah, so I mean, when I was younger, I'd have probably said the breaking in because breaking in's a lot of fun. Like if you've ever, watched a heist movie or whatever, like this is pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah,
But you kind of find over time as you get a little bit older that breaking things all the time is a really negative way to kind of view the world. It's actually kind of depressing. Instead, I choose to focus. The beauty of security for me is on what we are building in the world and keeping that safe long enough that it can do the awesome thing it wants to do. So when I was a kid, I was a sci-fi nerd. I would literally walk to the library in my holidays and just camp out there reading books. And I was in awe of these amazing technologies that were going to come and change the world. And now we weirdly live in a time where a lot of those technologies I read about are being built or have already been built. And
yes.
so for me, the exciting part isn't breaking anymore. It's in saying, hey, if we make a small change, we can make these into what they need to be in the world. And that's a pretty cool responsibility as a security person to kind of do that little tiny part to make the world better.
That's good. Well, security education is one of those things that's often reactive or maybe compliance driven, because we have to. How is your approach focused on behavioral change and culture different from traditional training programs?
Yeah, so like we've all done bad training, right? You've been given the annual
Yes.
compliance training comes around and you learn to click left as quickly as possible and get the thing gone. Now,
Right.
for me, training is a means to an end. Training is about creating a shared language, a shared understanding of a problem. So when we're teaching software teams how to think about security, we're not here to say, hey, your baby is ugly, you should feel bad, and here's the reasons it's going to go wrong, because nothing good comes from a conversation like that. But we're actually helping them re-engage a bit of their brain, a bit of their thought process that has been there since they were children. But, when we grow
Mm.
up and we learn to be law-abiding citizens and have jobs and all those kind of things, we forget about it. And it's that little instinct that lives in all of us where you see something new and you get curious and you get playful. Security is all about seeing systems from a different way and playing with them, using them in a way that wasn't expected. And so for
I
me,
like that.
it's about revisiting that. I want you to remember the kid who, when you said, like, how am I going to protect this castle? Your answer was not, a very logical plan. It was, I'm going to get Batman and dinosaurs and we're going to go at it. We need that energy. We need to see the potential in software and also how many ways it could be used in a way we hadn't expected. And so, yeah, that's our approach. That's what we do. And we bring it to every member of the software team because, in my view, writing the code is important. Obviously, no software without code. But there's also no software without the rest of our team. So we aim to get
Right.
everyone doing just 1 hour of security activity of any kind every sprint. So that's, for me, less time per sprint than I spend making coffee. So I feel like I'm not asking
I
too
like that.
much.
Oh, that's good. And it's an approach that is absolutely working. You scale to 84 countries organically, which is
Hmm.
amazing. What do you think resonated most with early adopters and helped you grow without a heavy marketing or ad push?
So I've been doing this for a very long time. So has my co-founder Erica, and we've done lots of experiments. We're traditional nerds, so like every time we do a new form of marketing or a new form of whatever, it's always an experiment with a hypothesis and what are we going to try and do and what's our budget. And 99% of them failed because our audience are software teams, and software teams are mildly allergic to salespeople, and they are
Yes.
incredibly high detail focused. So what they want is somebody with authority and authenticity who isn't overtly trying to sell to them, has something useful that they could buy, but actually is just willing to have a conversation and listen. So we've done a lot of global events, speaking at things, keynote speaker, regular speaker, not paid to play. We don't do that, but there because we know our stuff. We've written a couple of books, which I don't recommend as a marketing strategy, but my mom is very proud. Um, we've done conference booths. We tried that for a wee while. So we've done all of these kind of things. But the thing that really has brought us back time and time again is gaining that reputation for knowing what we're doing and understanding their world. And then a lot of our growth has been via referral and recommendation between customers.
Oh, that's really good. Was there an aha moment where you knew this wasn't just a side project or a niche idea, but a venture that could really have global impact?
Yeah, so we created this company as a product company in the middle of COVID, as you do. Most people were making sourdough, and we decided, how hard could it be to build a product company? Yeah,
Why not?
yeah. Well, everyone has to have a hobby. So we started building it in the April. We had it in market in the October. So it was a pretty rapid pace to begin with. And then by the January after that, so 3 months in, we'd already come near the 250,000 ARR. And so at that point, we're like, cool, that went quick. Like we had no sales team, we had nothing. We had no CRM at that point. We just had like me and my co-founder and our CTO, like basically just like putting our feet to the pavement and just going and having chats with people. And it was chaos. So yeah, we realized at that point that it was going to be bigger. We've learned a lot since. And there's, growing something and selling the first things in some ways is easier than the ongoing thing of running and growing and scaling a company. But yeah, we knew pretty early on it was going to be a fairly big thing.
It's good. Well, let's talk about some early stage challenges.
Mhm.
What is maybe the hardest parts of getting SafeStack off the ground from MVP to traction? Sounds like it happened pretty quickly.
So yeah, it happened quickly, but then it's sort of we've kind of had like bumps as we've kind of grown. So initially we were selling
Sure.
locally, so we're in New Zealand, so we were selling to the software companies here, and then we started dabbling in Australia, and then all of a sudden we were getting inbound from Thailand and Indonesia and East Timor and the USA. And suddenly we were like, whoa, hang on, we have time zones in the mix. And we have different currencies and we have different cultures. And that was a big challenge for us of trying to understand,
Yeah.
well, does software development work the same all around the world? We'd made some fairly big assumptions. The other side of it that's always been hard, and I think will always be hard, and like hug ups to any of the other founders who are watching this, and it resonates. People are hard. Like people are lovely. Can't build a company without them, but hiring the right people at the right time, like knowing when you're in enough pain to hire versus taking a chance and preemptively hiring, that balance is really, really hard. And in this market in particular, where, almost all of us are aiming for or reaching profitability rather than relying on large amounts of venture capitalism, so there's been a big shift since 2021. That hiring piece is even more important because salaries are very, very expensive. And in our part of the world, it's not easy to manage people if it isn't going well. So yeah, we have to be very, very conscious with people and make sure we make the right decisions at the right time. And I'll be the first to say I have made many, many mistakes on that.
Totally get where you're coming from there. Very relatable. What is maybe one of those big lessons or mistakes you say, hey, this was something, if I could go back and do that again or do it different, I would do that.
Mate, we could spend 24 hours talking about how many mistakes I've made. Look, I'm very open with the fact that for me, being a founder isn't about being perfect. It's about learning to get up again, dust yourself off, and try again, and not take it too seriously.
Yeah.
We have an entire channel in our Slack called Today I Learned, which is where everyone, including me, posts the thing we screwed up today, and what we learned from it. So, there's a lot of them. If I was going to go for one big one, though, in all honesty, I listened to some voices early on that I should not have given as much credit to. So one of the things that's taken me a while as a CEO and founder to realize is it's okay to be different. It's okay to be your own version of what a SaaS CEO looks like and sounds like and acts like. In the first, I'd say 12 to 18 months after we've done a couple of very small raises capital wise. And around that first raise, when we just gotten a little bit of money and, we were like, oh, we're on this big growth push because that's what VCs want from you at that point. And suddenly your inbox and your entire world is just filled with people who have well-meaning but not always experienced advice. And I spent a lot of time on calls listening to those and, and kind of investigating what they were. But actually, I should have just trusted my gut a lot more. There's an entire ecosystem that has developed to treat people like me who've just raised capital or who are growing a company as a business model, advisory firms, strategic advisory firms, virtual or fractional
Right.
services for this, that, or the other. And some of them are fantastic, but not all of them. And so, cutting down the noise and trusting myself, it's taken me a long time to get to that. But now I just don't have the energy to be wasting on it. So now I'm just me.
That's good. I think that's two really great things that I took away from that. One is the Slack channel, something that we have to implement that ourselves. I think that's absolutely brilliant. What I learned today, because every single day,
Every
I
day.
mean, across the company, everybody is learning lessons, and
Exactly.
why do more than one person in the company have to learn that same lesson
Yeah, and
when
also
we could
it's
learn from
it's
each
it's
other?
also modeling the behaviors I hope to see in the team. So my job as a CEO is not just to
Yeah.
get us to grow, is to create a psychologically safe environment for my team to know that we can experiment, we can take risk, but we can manage that in a way that we're all learning and that we don't, get distracted by it or thrown off course. So by me being part of that, I try and show and model the behaviors I would like from them, and that includes sharing when I fail and when I should have tried something different, or when I'm having a bad day and actually, wow, I really did screw that up. So it's not about any sort of kind of trite performance art. It really is just, hey, we're all in this together. Let's do something great and do it honestly.
I like that. Ready to future proof your company and scale to new heights? Dive into the ultimate resource designed just for SaaS founders and C suite executives. Champion Leadership Group gives you an unfair advantage in scaling up revenue and outwitting competitors. Imagine solving your biggest scaling headaches and hitting 5, 10, 20 million ARR and beyond with ease. We take away the guesswork and the grunt work and replace it with framework by supporting you with our on demand fractional C suite team, a powerful operating system built into software, and a thriving community of fellow scaling SaaS founders. That's how we make it happen. If you're stuck at your current revenue level, this is your ticket out. Feel like your company is the world's best kept secret? We amplify your success. And hey, if you're already crushing it but too busy to breathe, we got your back. We'll free up 20% of your time in the first month. Now is the time to upgrade from traction to scale. If you're ready to work smarter and not just grind harder, schedule a 10-minute growth brainstorm. Completely free, not a sales call. You can't buy anything on there. And we will pinpoint the number one thing blocking revenue. Visit championleadership.com. That's where leaders evolve and companies transform. The other thing I took away was who you listen to. I think that really makes so much difference. And understanding that there are a lot of voices out there. There's so many things to read and listen to and watch, and everybody has an idea or their magic way of doing whatever. And I think just tuning out the noise and really focusing in and deciding who to listen to and what's the right now thing, and trusting your gut. What's my right next step when there's a
Mm.
million things that I could do or should do or everybody says you have to do. All that's just noise, and it's figuring out what is my right next step.
Yeah, and if I was going to add a little bit of extra of layer to that is
Yes.
you kind of have to also look at the backgrounds of the people who are giving advice. Some folks have amazing advice because they've lived and breathed certain things, and you can look at their experience and you can go, oh, right, I see where that's come from. If you
Right.
can't really see the trail of the failures that led to them knowing how to do this thing, like I love working with advisors and mentors who they've, skinned their knees so many times they have to wear long trousers. I don't like working with folks on the whole, and I'm generalizing, who are, earlier in their careers, who perhaps have read a lot of blog posts or been in part of an advisory organization. I I really need lived experience. And like venture capitalism for that is a good example for me. So in this part of the world, a lot of our investors made their money from real estate or from
Sure.
traditional routes of investing, and now they've diversified into early stage capital. Now that's great, wonderful, great people, but the advice they give you about scaling a company comes from their background. And if their background is real estate, that may not translate as directly to a SaaS company that's in a lot of countries.
Right. Right. In fact, it probably doesn't much at all.
Probably not, but I am horribly polite when pushed. So, we always try not to offend anyone.
Well, I mean that's part of the New Zealand
Oh,
culture
it
too.
is absolutely.
And you guys are always polite.
Yeah, and it's like we have the various punctuation that you have in America, like full stops and colons, semicolons, and then sorry, which is like the next piece of punctuation that we use between all sentences.
That's true. How has it been different working in different cultures? Being from New Zealand, because it is different whether you're talking about Asia or Europe or
Hmm.
the Americas, Latin America. How has that been different as a founder in navigating just the different companies and cultures you're dealing with?
Look, if I'm probably going to offend some of your audience, and I don't intend to, I've just spent a little while in the US over the last few weeks, in both in New York and in California, and I think that for me is a really good example of how different cultures can be. So,
Oh
like to
yes.
an outsider, I assume New York was going to be all like, go, 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 hard line, very aggressive. What I found is it does focus on like efficiency. There's like very little room for small talk. But when somebody says a yes or a no, they mean a yes or a no. When they say they're going to do something, they follow up on it. And it's quite connection based. So when you're in a call with somebody and they're like, oh, yeah, I know someone like this, they will actually do that connection and that introduction. In California, much more laid back outside, but also a lot more process. There tends to be a lot more conversation. And I mean, no disrespect to anyone from California, don't always believe a yes. Sometimes the eyes are saying, yes, this is amazing. And actually, no, what they mean is no, I just don't want to say no to you in this call because it feels weird and confrontational. And it's that kind of thing. So we have the same in, some of the Asian markets. They have very different business profiles and processes than we're used to in New Zealand, Australia. Um, Australia favors connection and relationships. So if you're not known to somebody who's known to somebody, it can be more challenging. Um, it's just been really very interesting. Something to learn every day in that space. And, from a communication point of view, really understanding how to navigate that has been actually really enjoyable. I think Dubai was the most interesting. So in this part of the world, New Zealand, Australia, we're interested that everyone has families and things, but we don't tend to ask about it. In Arabic nations, it's actually seen as really rude if you don't have some small talk at the start and show interest in their family and interest in their culture and their community. And so this has been really good for me, understanding those mindsets and how we need to adjust, not just how we present ourselves, but the product presents itself, how we do our support, how we do our sales. Every bit of it has to be adapted to that culture.
That's really good. Very insightful. I think a lot of people don't have that broad experience with so many, and so that's really really good insight.
Thanks. Again, it's one of those learn by doing things, right? You get it wrong a few times and suddenly you learn.
Yes. Well, that's culture outside. As a leader, how do you maintain a culture inside that balances trust, innovation, and safety, especially in a world where, and when we think of security, a lot of times it's often framed by fear?
Mm. It's really challenging, and this it's the weird thing about being a security startup is you've got the fear because it's security, and then you've got the fear because you're an early stage company. So like it's you're doubling down on anxiety. I think I am the little orange critter for Inside Out. Just that's my spirit animal. Um, so inside the company, what we try, firstly, we have a culture of transparency. So all the financials, all of those things, they're all available to everyone. Like there's no weird kind of, oh, you can't know this. Like there's no point in hiding that stuff. People have chosen to work for my company. Often for a little bit less than they would earn elsewhere because we're a young company and we try and be quite, pragmatic with our spend on people. And they've done so in a higher risk environment than going to work for a bank or an airline or whatever big business they could have gone and done. So as a sign of respect for that, so that they can make good decisions and know whether they're safe and continue that, they have transparency. They can ask me about anything. I'll walk them through the finances. Like there's no secrets there for our team. It may not be particularly exciting, but it's not a secret. The other thing is we meet together really regularly, the whole team, to talk about what's going well, what's not going well, and what we can do better. And we do that on one-to-one basis, but we also do it as a whole group. And there's a continuous understanding that the process we have today and the things we're doing today probably won't work in the future because we're growing and expanding and changing. And so we don't get emotionally attached to anything we've built. We always come with it like, this is what we've built now, and that's the best thing that we can do in this moment. But if we come to it later and someone's like, oh, actually, this isn't working, it's causing pain now. Okay, cool. All right, what do we need to change? And it stops being like a territorial sort of, this is my thing, don't touch it. And everyone just kind of goes, all right, cool. Well, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? Or what if we changed that? And then we use our data to check those changes actually helped. So it becomes very collaborative and very constructive. And our performance as a team, we don't see ourselves as individuals who each need to excel. We see ourselves as a team who excel together, which is, it's not the same as in all organizations. We're not particularly hierarchical. And trust is super, super important to me. I am now in the position, thank you to all of the hard work the team has done, that I can take a week's leave with my little family and we can go off on an adventure, go camping or whatever, and I don't have to take my phone or my laptop. The company runs without me. And that actually was weird. The first time that happened, I was like, oh, okay, they don't need me anymore. But actually now it's wonderful because it means all of us can take rest. We can, if you
Yes.
think about like high performance athletes, right? I kind of think this is like a 10-year marathon we're all running. Well, athletes only work well if they have high performance times, but also big times of rest. So everyone in the team, we make sure that we do that. And the additional thing we give them to help with that is one wellness day every month. So everyone gets their leave. Like in this part of the world, it's 20 days plus public holidays, but we won't tell the American audience because they get sad. And then they also get 1 day per month for wellness, and they can take it any time in the
That's
month,
good.
and they can spend it that time doing anything so long as it makes them happier and healthier. So no secret chore days, no like I'm going to go and do my taxes today. No, 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 no. But, go play golf, go play video games and eat pizza. I don't care. Do something that makes you happy and healthy and lets your brain unwind for a bit because we all need that.
That is really smart. And yeah, I applaud you for taking time off. One, putting yourself in a position where you can, but then actually doing
Mm.
it. That's far, far too rare.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I've
It's,
got to that age now where I realize how critical it is. Um, you know,
yeah.
I'm 41, which is not that old, but I feel old now compared to when I
No.
started. Maybe it just a SaaS company ages you. Um, but energy is not infinite. And I also have young children. I have a life around all of this. And the way I see it is I owe it to every responsibility in my life, whether it's the family or whether it's the company, to take good care of myself. I am a business asset just as anyone else in my team is. And if I don't look after the assets, then they crumble and they're not useful, which means, unfortunately, doing dumb things like going to the gym and eating healthily and ugh, and then taking holiday from time to time.
It's so good. And that's a great way to look at it, is taking care of the assets, not only yourself, but your team. And oh, that's great. And behavior change, whether it is our own or our team or clients, I mean, that's no small feat. How'd you go about designing a product that educates and changes how engineers behave, which I think is incredibly difficult, and to do that without being annoying, boring, or ignored, which so many other companies are?
Yeah, well, I won't speak for all of our customers. I'm sure there's someone somewhere that, doesn't like something we're doing. Um, for us, we lead with empathy when we're building the product. So because I'm still a software engineer, because my team has a number of software engineers on it, we are very well aware of when I give you advice in security, I say, hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z. There's always a cost. X, Y, and Z is going to get in the way of your velocity, or it's going to make things less performance or harder to scale, or there's always a trade-off. And so instead of just naively coming in, we're able to, in anything we're doing, share that trade-off and say, hey, look, here's your options. So it becomes about choice for them. Engineering is actually a really amazing space when you look at all of the different ways we can actually achieve things. And so telling people the one way to do it is never going to work in engineering because they're smart people. So we have to understand the
Yes.
engineering mindset. We have to give them options and explain why. Why is really very important to engineers. And we have to trust them. We have to trust them that actually they've been doing this a long time, and that there's a degree of this that they're going to be able to take care of themselves. The other thing is we mix different formats of how we engage with people. So sometimes it's, written, sometimes it's videos, sometimes it is interactive seminars and actually talking to people, or could be hands-on games and things that they play. We try and use all sorts of formats to make it more interesting. And then we constantly listen to them. So we have 100 and something courses in our platform now, which is quite a lot, but consider
Wow.
it like a Lego set. Like, my job isn't to make you do 100 courses. That would be really horrible. But it's to give you the exact combination of little modules and courses that you need for your job right now. So we're being really respectful of your time and saying, hey, you only need to do 20 minutes a quarter. Like, this is not a huge amount of investment. It's going to be really relevant to you. And then we also say, hey, as well as giving you what we have, tell us what's hurting you right now. So our backlog of training is not just curated from the security community, which has its own feelings and opinions, but it's actually talking to our engineers who are our audience and saying, hey, what's hard right now? And what we're finding is actually the big challenges are not necessarily emerging vulnerabilities. It's the fact that our advice for the last 20 years has been completely impractical. And so when people come and put it in place, it doesn't work. So a lot of what we do spend our time on is going, cool, that doesn't work at all. How do we do this in a different way?
Hmm. I love that you're kind of re-engineering that whole thing. How do your engineering leaders engage their whole team in security and not just leave it to the one AppSec person over in the corner?
Well, let's just I'm going to myth bust you just right now.
All
So,
right.
how many people do you think an organization has in software development before they get an AppSec person? What do you think the average is?
20.
150.
Whoa. No way.
Absolutely is. So we did a big
Wow.
survey about 2,000 organizations globally, and the average was 150. So there are actually organizations out there
Wow.
with over 1,000 engineers and nobody in AppSec. So that terrifies me. But anywho,
Yes,
like,
it
just
should.
dodging the trauma for a second. Um, so how do you get your whole team engaged? Well, that number tells me that we absolutely have to get the whole team engaged, because when there's no
Yes.
one there, what are you going to do? It just means nothing's happening. So first things first, we have to change the way we think about security. So security isn't separate. It isn't like an optional thing that you add on if you want to. For me, security is part of software quality. So software quality includes things like it can be scaled, it performs well, it's usable, accessible, and these are a known set of criteria in the software engineering space. We say that security is part of that. So your software should be defendable, it should be secure. Now,
Hmm.
once you change that, that changes the mindset, because that stops being part of a separate thing. It starts being part of just day-to-day job as an engineer. The next thing that we do is we make sure that security is more visible. So our software teams have a concept of technical debt, which is the stuff we don't get to finish really when we're building software. It's like the to-do list of things we
Right.
never got to. And
Yeah, we'll come back and fix that
yeah,
later.
exactly. And if you claim your
Yeah.
company doesn't have any of that, I salute you, but I think you're wrong. Every company
100%.
has some. It's just whether you write it down or not that's different. Now, in security, we also have a concept of security debt. And often this is just not written down anywhere. It's just sort of kept in people's heads. They're aware that we've got this thing. So we try and make it more visible. So making security part of standard requirements, part of your design process in the way that we think and we review things, just adds kind of like these little mental nudges every now and again. And the final thing that we can do is we can create things like Security Champions Program, which when naively done is you just get people together who like security and you feed them pizza once a month. But done well, it actually creates like a little backlog. And what you say is, hey, these development team members are really kind of keen, interested people. I'm going to support them. I'm going to recognize and reward them for this extra effort and interest. But in return, we're going to move the needle a little bit on security together. So they become responsible for the action, not just for the, being an evangelist or a supporter of security.
No, really, really smart. And security, I think, is one of those things that founders push off. And if you're telling me that the number is 150 developers before they have an AppSec person, it sounds like that is way more of a problem than I even thought.
Yeah.
What would be your message to other SaaS founders, particularly in B2B, who are too focused on shipping product and not thinking about security until they're asked by an enterprise customer or until something bad happens?
So what I would say, there's kind of twofold as a founder as to why the security thing matters. Firstly, it sounds crude. Just because you haven't breached, it doesn't mean you're secure. It just means you're lucky. Many of the organizations who did get breached, it wasn't about them. It was just opportunistic. And if you succeed, if you become the amazing company you want in the world, you'll become more interesting to people who are just exploring. They're just playing. And sometimes those folks, then cause a lot of trouble. The other side of this is kind of come back to those enterprise sales, like your dream customer. If your dream customer is a larger organization or a more mature one, or they're in a regulated industry, so they're a government organization, they're in finance, health, insurance, any of those, or you're selling into Europe, all of those have requirements that are not optional to them. For them, doing security is just like table stakes. You have to do it, and you do not sell to those organizations if you don't. So if you know your ideal customer profile includes these groups and their regulated industries, then don't try and just kind of skirt around it. By embracing security and doing it in a way that can be scaled, so little bits consistently done over time with the whole team rather than a big mammoth audit effort, you're going to speed up your sales process. And I'm not saying that even like fluffily. If you look at selling to someone like, the Walmarts of the world, they will literally send you their equivalent of a love letter. Now, that love letter is essentially an Excel spreadsheet with 1,000 different security controls in it that they expect all of their partners to meet. And as a young company, when you've got nobody in security, this is a nightmare. Because you look at this and go, wow, we do not do any of this, and I don't even know what this language means. Now, that can add months, if not longer, to your sales process as the team tries to desperately get through these checks. So, your sales folk have done a great job. Everyone's happy. Everyone wants the product. You've probably done all of those initial things, but this is those last things that stand between you and a signature and money in the bank. So if you want to reduce your time to sale and you're selling into regulated industries or organizations much bigger than you, then making sure you have a repeatable approach to security will really dramatically and consistently speed up your sales process.
And that's something that I think every company is struggling with, especially the last couple of years, is slow sales process, and anything you can do to make that faster.
Yep.
And that's 100% true. They're just non-negotiables, especially when you're looking at mid-market or enterprise that they have to have in security.
There's also a couple of features that we tend to put off as enterprise type features that really there's no need to. Just bring them in early and don't charge extra for them. And that's things like having single sign-on. Like if you've got a great platform, but your big customer can't use their Active Directory or Google or Okta to authenticate, that is going to be really difficult for them to get over the line. And most of the tools we use to build software now, assuming you're using something like Auth0 or whatever for your authentication components, this is just out the box stuff. So don't
Right.
look at it as oh, we'll get to it later, that's enterprise stuff. Just consider good security basics to be just part of what we do. And that way it stops being optional, you get it done, and suddenly all of these questions get a lot easier for you to answer.
Thanks again, Laura, for coming on the show and sharing your journey and insights. You can learn more about Laura and SafeStack at safestack.io. All links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. And be sure to check us out on YouTube as well. Our channel is at Champion Leadership. There we have full video episodes, training, outtakes, shorts, reels, lots more stuff over there for you. And thought leaders share. Share this episode with a colleague who always sharpens your thinking. Now, this one's perfect for your next coffee chat. Everyone who shares this week gets the Founders Starter Kit, 1 unicorn plushie, 3 Red Bulls, and a playlist of motivational quotes whispered by Steve Jobs impersonators. What if your accounting system gave you power, not panic? Up next, Natalia Zachrin, founder of Zachrin Consulting, shares how business owners can build financial confidence and resilience with strategic bookkeeping and remote CFO insights. Then, 1 week from today, David Young, founder of Federated Computer, joins us to talk about privacy first productivity tools and why open source tech is the future of secure enterprise workflows. I'll see you next time. As always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/saasfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.
Let's go!